So this is an automatic machine. It has a set of knives in it that automatically trim the threads when you sew. So we just sew a little bit more with it. Heel back on the pedal and it trims the thread and does it. And it's a really nice little stitch on this machine. The Pegasus W600 has a really good reputation for being a good quality cover stitch. There's also a knee switch, just see if you can look down there. There's also a knee switch, so when you put that knee switch, it'll lift the foot up for you without cutting the threads. Sometimes you want to do that if you want to put a belt loop or a label or something in under the foot without cutting your threads. So you can lift your foot up with your knee switch and then sew that in. And when you get to the end, you just heel back and it trims. So that's a really good feature too on these machines. Now, if you're wanting to do binding on one of these machines, so here we have binding. We've got binding, that's just a 30mm binder. They call them a 30 by 8, so roughly finishes 8. The tape size starts at 30. And these machines will do that really well. So you get an attachment like this. They come on a bracket like this, so you can get them already set up in the right spot, and you just slot those two things down there like that and tighten that up. Just do the one screw for now. Now you can use it with rubber, like this one has. So that's what the folders look like. And can you focus on this here too? So this is a little device that just helps to keep the tape running nice and flat and also guides your rubber. If you want, you can put a little bit of tension on the rubber, which will give you a slight, oops, just a slight little bit of gather like it's got there if that's what you want on your swimwear. But if you don't want any gather on it, you can get it running really flat like that too with no tension on any of these things. So you put that there. Now I've set these up. Can you come right in on here? So there's a little guide there that I've just soldered onto the back of the folder, which helps to guide the rubber in, and also it goes down through there. And now there's another little guide here like this, and it's got a little loop on the front of it. Now the idea of that one there is to keep the rubber up in the top of the fold. I'll just see if I can show you how that works. So you put that through there, and the rubber runs on that little finger, and that helps to keep it up. Now, sometimes the reason we've got this little loop in here is because sometimes you may need to, depending on what rubber you're using, bend that up a little bit, bend it down a little bit, bend it in closer to the folder a little bit, or out. We're only using thin lycra here, but if you're using a thicker, say cotton lycra, you'd want to bend that out a little bit. I'll just run this now. So you cut a nice long point like that on your bit of fabric. You don't worry about this because you've got this. So we put this in first. Oh, just a little hint too, when you're using these folders, I have seen, just excuse me for a minute, I have seen a few of the ladies in the factories get the point of their scissors and feed that lycra in there. Don't ever do that. That's hardened steel, and that'll scratch up all the inside of the folder, and when you try to put your nice soft fabric through, it'll pick up threads on the inside of your fold, and it'll just be awful. It won't work at all. So we'll just do a little bit now with just the fabric and no rubber. There you go. That's lovely. Really nice bit of binding. and it's nice and soft. If you're binding on swimwear, they generally want to have the rubber in it because it makes it a little bit more secure on the girl. But if it's exercise gear or lingerie even, they want it to be really nice and soft, so that it feels nice and soft. I'll just put that, or you can keep going too and make a strap. So sometimes I'd use this on the tops, ladies' tops of their swimmers, and I'll keep going and make a strap for the shoulder. If you want to put the rubber in, once again, cut a nice long point like that, feed it in through that little guide, and you get it so far, and the fold, you can see the rubber just starting to come out there. Fabric will bring it out. Now you see what I mean by this little finger holding that rubber up. If that rubber slips down in here, it makes your binding look really ugly. So we'll just try it now with a bit of rubber. There you go. Binding with rubber, beautiful. And now we'll put a little bit of tension on the rubber and we'll show you what happens there. Just screw that in just to get a bit of tension, okay. So if you want your swimwear, that's probably a little bit too much tension because the fabric has gone a bit funny. But if you want to stop that, the fabric going a bit funny, you put a bit of tension on the fabric as well, and it'll all stretch out together and come back and look beautiful. I'll just get another piece of fabric. Just stop that for a second. So if you have trouble when you're hemming on a cover stitch machine, and you can see how that's sort of rolling a little bit, rolling the fabric a little bit, I'll show you what you need to do to fix that up. So if we can come in close to the foot there, you've got a little nut and a little screw there. And if you can see the front of this foot, when I've loosened that nut already, so when you tighten that little screw in, you'll see the front of this foot just start to rise a little bit. See it just come up a bit? So you get the front of that foot just to lift up at the front just a tiny little bit. And I'll show you the difference that makes when you're trying to hem. So see how beautiful and flat that is now? That's what that little adjustment on your foot is for. You just loosen, but don't put the foot up too high or you'll create other problems. So you just have the front of the foot just up a tiny little bit. Now I'll tighten that little nut up, and never tighten these little nuts up too tight because you'll break them off. They're only fairly small. They just need to be nipped up a little tiny bit. If you haven't got a little spanner like this, you can use a pair of pointy nose pliers. That's all you need to tighten that up, because it just needs to be nipped up just a little bit like that. That's it, and you'll get a really nice result on the hem on your product. If you get that little, once you put a little bit of tension on your rubber, if you get that little sort of gather on your tape, then you come back over here and you just tighten up the tape a little bit. Put a tiny bit of tension on the tape. If you've got approximately the same tension on the tape as you have on this, when they stretch and they pull tight, they'll all come back together. So you get a nice little bit of gather on your product, but the tape looks really nice and smooth and lovely. So, oops, I've just, it's for top stitching, sewing down seams, stitching elastic in. Once you've attached the elastic, you can use it to top stitch the elastic. Oh, won't that go in there, lovey? Oh, and I have to say, I've had an expert photographer here helping me. My granddaughter, Lottie, has been doing great camera work and is very patient with her grandfather. Oh, there it is. Okay. We'll do it again. But you can see what I mean, And they bind really well when you've got the front of that foot just adjusted up a little bit as well. Do one more. There you go. Beautiful binding. Nice little bit of gather on your swimwear if you're doing swimwear. And so it will bind with rubber or without the rubber. This attachment doesn't come with machines. You've got to buy that as an extra. But I've just put it there to just show you what sort of things you can do with the machine. Thanks, Lee.